My parents were seated in the third row as I crossed the stage. They hadn't wanted to attend. They had refused at first. They claimed medical school graduation wasn't worth the 6-hour drive. Yet there they sat, expressions stiff, while the keynote speaker announced their names over the microphone to an audience of 2,000 people and described exactly the kind of parents they had been. My name is Dr. Avery Chen. I'm 29 years old. I finished at the top of my class from one of the most rigorous medical programs in the nation. This is the story of how I spent 8 years being told I would never achieve anything, and how the woman who believed in me made certain my parents heard the truth in front of everyone who mattered. Let me take you back to the beginning. I was 17 when I told my parents I wanted to become a doctor. We were at the dinner table in our modest home in rural Pennsylvania. My father laughed. Not an encouraging laugh, a mocking one, the kind that slices right through you. Doctors come from wealthy families, Avery, he said. They come from elite schools and powerful connections. They don't come from families like ours. My mother nodded in agreement, as she always did when my father spoke. She rarely had her own thoughts. She simply repeated his. You need to be practical, she said. Get a job at the factory like your brother. It's steady. It's sensible. Don't waste your time chasing dreams that aren't meant for people like us. People like us. I heard that line throughout my entire childhood. It was their method of keeping me limited. Their way of making sure I never rose above them. But I applied to colleges anyway. I received a full scholarship to a state university 3 hours away. When I shared the news with my parents, my father said, "Don't come running back to us when you fail." I didn't cry. I packed my things and left. College was difficult, not because of the studies. I performed well academically, but I felt isolated. My parents never called. They never visited. When I earned a spot on the dean's list my first year, I sent them a picture of the certificate. My mother replied by text, "That's nice." When I was accepted into medical school, I phoned home to tell them. My father picked up. He listened for roughly 30 seconds, then said, "You'll probably quit by the second year. Let me know when you're ready to return home and find a real job." I didn't quit. I graduated at the top of my class. I matched into one of the most competitive surgical residency programs in the country. And not once during those 8 years did my parents ever say they were proud of me. Before I go on, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching this story from right now? Drop your location in the comments. I read every single one. And knowing that people across the world understand what it feels like to be underestimated by the very people who should support you the most means everything to me. If this story connects with you, please consider subscribing. These stories aren't only about revenge. They are about showing that other people's doubts don't have the power to decide your future. In my 3rd year of medical school, I met Dr. Eleanor Vance. She was a cardiothoracic surgeon, one of the most admired in her specialty, and she had been asked to mentor a small group of students interested in surgery. I was selected. Dr. Vance was brilliant, intimidating, and had zero tolerance for excuses. She challenged me more intensely than anyone ever had. She critiqued my skills, questioned my decisions, and made me repeat procedures until my hands were sore. Then, one evening after an especially tough simulation session, she asked me to remain. She sat across from me in the quiet lab and said, "You have real talent, Avery, but you hold yourself back." Why? I didn't know how to respond at first. Eventually, I told her everything. I shared about my parents, the laughter at the dinner table, the years of being told I wasn't capable, and the silence where encouragement should have been. Dr. Vance listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned in and said something I will always remember. "The people who doubt you aren't barriers, Avery. They are motivation. Use them." I did. I dedicated myself to my work with a drive I hadn't known I possessed. I published papers. I received awards. I was chosen to present at national conferences. And every time I reached a new milestone, I remembered my father's laugh at that dinner table, and I pushed even harder. By the time graduation drew near, I had been chosen for a special recognition. The medical school selected one graduating student each year to be highlighted in the keynote address. This year, they picked me. The keynote speaker was Dr. Eleanor Vance. 2 weeks before graduation, Dr. Vance called me into her office. She mentioned she was preparing her speech. She asked if there was anything particular I wanted her to include or anyone I wanted her to recognize. I considered it carefully. Then I told her the truth. My parents refused to attend graduation, I said. They claimed it wasn't worth the drive. They have never believed in me. They have spent my whole life telling me I would fail. Dr. Vance stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Give me their names." I paused. "What are you planning?" "I'm going to make sure they hear what they should have been saying all these years," she replied. Whether they want to hear it or not, I didn't know exactly what she intended, but I trusted her. I gave her my parents' names, and then I did something I never expected to do. I sent my parents an invitation to graduation anyway, not because I thought they would come, because I needed to know without doubt that they had chosen not to. My mother called 3 days later. "We're not driving 6 hours for a ceremony, Avery. You'll get your diploma in the mail anyway. What's the point?" "The point is I'm graduating from medical school," I said, "at the top of my class." "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" She sighed. "You've always been overly dramatic. We'll celebrate when you come home for Christmas, if you come home." She ended the call. I sat in my apartment and felt something change inside me. Not sadness, not rage, just clear understanding. They were never going to change, and I was finished waiting for them to. Graduation day came. 2,000 people filled the auditorium, families holding flowers and cameras, professors wearing academic robes, my classmates filled with excitement. I sat in the front row with the other graduates, cap and gown crisp and perfect, and I scanned the audience out of habit. They weren't there. Of course they were. Dr. Vance stepped onto the stage. She spoke about the path to becoming a physician, about sacrifice, resilience, and the people who influence us. Then her voice changed. She said, "I want to tell you about one student in particular. Someone who entered medical school without any family backing, no financial security, no one telling her she could succeed. In fact, the complete opposite. Her parents told her she would fail. They laughed when she announced she wanted to be a doctor. They told her that dreams like hers weren't meant for people like them." The auditorium fell silent. Dr. Vance continued. "Those parents, Richard and Diane Chen, refused to attend today. They told their daughter that a 6-hour drive wasn't worth watching her graduate at the top of her class from one of the best medical programs in the country." I felt my heart skip. She was saying their names, out loud, in front of everyone. But here's what Richard and Diane Chen don't understand. Dr. Vance said their daughter didn't succeed because of them. She succeeded despite them. She turned skepticism into resolve. She turned dismissal into motivation. And today, she stands among the finest physicians this institution has ever produced. Dr. Avery Chen, please stand. I stood. 2,000 people clapped. I saw professors nodding. I saw classmates wiping tears, and then I saw them. My parents, 3rd row, center section. They had come after all. They must have changed their minds at the last minute, driven through the night, arrived just in time to hear their names spoken in front of 2,000 strangers. Their faces were pale. My mother's hands were trembling. My father looked like he wanted to sink into the ground. Dr. Vance wasn't done. "To the parents who show up," she said, "who sacrifice and support and believe even when it's difficult. Thank you. You are the reason your children succeed. And to the parents who don't, who doubt and dismiss and belittle, I hope you're listening. Because your children will succeed anyway, and they'll remember exactly who wasn't there." The applause was thunderous. I walked across that stage and received my diploma. I shook Dr. Vance's hand, and I looked straight at my parents in the 3rd row. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply looked. They left before the ceremony finished. I didn't see them depart, but when I checked the crowd afterward, their seats were empty. That night, my phone vibrated with a text from my mother. "That was embarrassing, Avery. How could you do that to us?" I typed back 4 words. "I didn't do anything." Dr. Vance told the truth. You just didn't like hearing it. I blocked them both after that. Not forever. Just long enough to prove that I didn't need their approval to feel whole. 6 months later, I began my surgical residency. I work 16-hour shifts. I save lives. I mentor students who remind me of myself, the ones who come from nothing and dream of everything. My parents have contacted me a few times, uncomfortable voicemails, stiff texts. My father even sent a card that said, "We're proud of you." It arrived 3 months after graduation. Too little. Too late, but not too late for me, because I learned something important that day in the auditorium. The people who doubt you don't deserve a front row seat to your success. But sometimes, if you're fortunate, they get one anyway. And they have to watch from the cheap seats while the world celebrates everything they said you would never become. My name is Dr. Avery Chen. I'm a surgeon, I'm successful. And the parents who said I'd fail, they had to hear about it from a microphone in front of 2,000 people, with their names attached. If you're watching this and someone in your life has told you you're not good enough, I want you to know this. They are wrong. And one day, they'll know it too. The only question is whether they'll be brave enough to admit it. Thank you for listening. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next one.